derived cultural norms that are accepted and consensual and can be followed within our culture. Such PC and multiculturalist totalitarian groups want to hyphenize concepts of citizenship and national identity rather than citizenship being about rights and duties under agreed laws. You start to see a blurring of ideas between citizenship and nationality. You cannot be a Nigerian English person, but you can be not a Nigerian English citizen, even if you are not an actual citizen of Nigeria. This is illogical, but because it freezes debate, it freezes the logical actions we would take if we did have the debate. So that is one of the reasons I wanted to respond to your video. Irrationalism must be defined. If nationalism is more than transitional, i.e. that nationalism builds concepts of social duties and legal rights which are assets and rational to develop democratic institutions, then nationalism is not an end state. It is a way to set the framework in which we pay attention to nationalist concerns for self-determination, i.e. the community we subscribe to and are accepted by via birth or constitutional oath to uphold the Constitution as the highest law, thus safeguarding our own rights and those of fellow citizens. Or as in Sweden and Switzerland, it is both those ideas, as the Constitution is the citizen's manual as well as the highest law. These nations have both a constitutionalist nationalist culture of direct democracy in trial or political decision by peers. This is what allows a trial to be fair, as it is an articulation of consent to a process of trial which uses agreed cultural norms to solve solutions which arrive at laws which are consensual. It's not just power. We all live by these laws and know if we break them that we can consent to decisions by our peers, even if we don't agree with the outcomes, say conviction for a suspected crime we may or may not have committed. This is a fundamental principle of citizenship. This is a fundamental principle of citizen and nation as a concept and the foundation of Western civilization. This is why in Sweden and Switzerland they have direct democracy due to the consensual governance principle of peers as citizens raising issues to be made into laws, and also why Tom Paine and Tom Jefferson put amendments and the right of making treaties in the US Constitution as a right to keep law apt to context and keep law alive to avoid the consensual principle being overridden by dead laws in a tyranny of past generations' laws being forced on the present living generation's wants for laws they can abide by. Jefferson actually said that a past generation has no more right to coerce the living than a foreign nation has, which leads to the consensual principle and self-determination principle dovetailing well. In terms of self-determination and ethics, the early Romans believed that a father could decide who lived and who died in his household. He was the paterfamilias tyrannis, a pure self-determination of state power, the father acting as the state in his own household. But as Roman rationalism develops, the law recognised by degrees over time, by increments over time, the right to life. Infanticide, which the Romans' enemies Sparta and Carthage practiced, was banned. Eventually, other forms of murder were banned because male and female babies could be an asset to the state and the Roman nation, making a virtuous circle. Eventually, in the Enlightenment, individuals curbed states' coercive power, especially in the US in 1776. So idea, the idea and ideal of an Englishman's home is his castle is both a republican idea and very much different from the paterfamilias tyrannus of Rome, of the earliest Romans. A father could discipline his wife in the English concepts or his children verbally in the 19th and 20th century, but the law forbid him from breaking cultural norms the nation had determined via democratic elections and the will of Parliament as illegal. This is what caused the modern idea of the nation with the state in service to the nation with no private good coming before public good. Empires of the Western world thus was both an economic and political symptom of those successful concepts and a necessity because of the flaws of focusing on capital, machines that make other machines, and getting humans to be beings, to be servants of production, not utility to be the servant of humanity. We would call capital today probably machine tools, but that's the word they used it in the 19th century and before. So, because of the flaws of focusing on capital, machines that make other machines, and getting human beings to be servants of production, not utility derived from goods and service produced, to be the servant of humanity, by neoclassical and Marxist economists. Both these groups were armed and totalitarian. They were both capitalists because they were obsessed with the control of capital, but wanted their power group to control the capital. This is why Lenin killed the social democratic nationalists in the Russian transitional government, and why Churchill and J.P. Morgan opposed the mostly socialist, social democratic and nationalist, not imperialist, party parliamentary politics in the Kaiser's Germany, as well as for Churchill and J.P. Morgan's own personal financial benefit from war profiteering from, as it turned out, World War One. The reason by the reaction by the political centre was military Keynesianism, which formed an idea of using a mixed economy to build up defence and channel technological innovations into the civil sector of the economy. This was a branch of Keynesian economics that was adopted by Hitler's Germany on a civil basis in 1933, so war broke out with Poland in 1939 after the Danzig massacre of former German citizens by the Polish troops. The Nazis' use of totalitarian methods of government, although military Keynesianism was also and is also used by Israel, US, England and the EU, which are all constitutional democracies, to fight against totalitarianism, as it was successfully used as a method to fight the spread of Marxism from Eurasia, the Soviet Union and Red China, to the oceanic civilizations of the West and Japan. So the questions for nationalism is now, once we have social markets, cooperatives and functioning institutions in constitutional democracy, is the point of one nationalist to be the enemy of another because they live in different nations or different nation states, or they are part of different nations?